Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, you couldn't identify your purpose and you felt this lack of purpose in your life that made you constantly question your existence, why you're here, why are you going through what you're going through? I felt that in my life. So I'm 46 years old right now, and I can tell you from experience that I spent the majority of my life not walking completely in my purpose. I was doing some things that sort of contributed to my purpose, but weren't necessarily my ultimate purpose. So I know what it is to have a yearning, something burning inside of you that wants to find out why you were created. Who am I? What is my identity? And why am I here on this planet Earth, experiencing these things, doing these things, interacting with people, so forth and so on. So hang out with me today. I want to talk about 5 mistakes that could be blocking you from walking in your purpose. And most important, more important, is what do we do to overcome them? Right. So we're going to talk about 5 mistakes that could be blocking you from your purpose. The first mistake that, and again, all of this is from personal experience, what I've lived. And what I've lived has been corroborated via my studies, via conversations with great thought leaders, mentors, so forth and so on, and just individual study. But the most important thing I want you to remember is that I have walked through this, and I'm continuing to walk through this. Okay. So the first mistake that I've identified in not being able to walk in your purpose is unforgiveness. And that could be a shocker to you. That could be like, what does unforgiveness have to do with not walking in my purpose? Well, it has everything to do with not walking in your purpose. Essentially, when we have unforgiveness in our heart, and we're going to talk about this and unpack it, but when we have unforgiveness in our heart, it's akin, again, to 1,000-pound weight strapped to your shoulders, on your back. And you can imagine that picture, that everything you try to do with that weight on your back is going to be abbreviated. It's going to be handicapped. It's going to be, you will not be able to do even what you would normally do, let alone anything outside of your norm with that 1,000-pound weight on your back. It's just, it's next to impossible. So when we free ourselves from the burden of unforgiveness, we mount up with wings like eagles. We soar, we fly, and so many things that were hidden to you before, you will be able to see. It will be revealed to you once you start walking in unforgiveness. So holding on to resentment towards others and yourself keeps you trapped. And we've heard all this before. Most of us have heard what unforgiveness does to us, but I'm not certain that we've considered what unforgiveness is doing to block your potential, right? So forgiveness is about your freedom, let me say that again. Forgiveness is about your freedom, not letting someone else off the hook. And I think that for me and my experiences, one of the most difficult things for forgiveness towards others was that it essentially felt like they've hurt me, they've wronged me. Why should I let them off the hook, right? Because essentially when you're hurt and when you're wrong, you want people to know how you feel, how it made you feel. And so we essentially hold on to that, because the truth of the matter is 9 times out of 10, they will never fully understand what you've experienced, what you feel and what you felt by being quote unquote wrong. So it's almost a moot point to try to hold on to something to show, look, this is what you did to me. This is how you made me feel, right? They probably will never fully understand that because they're not you. They didn't walk through what you've walked through. So that notion in and of itself could be blocking you from forgiving someone. It's not about letting them off the hook. If they've wronged you, it is a wrong. And that can and should and will be dealt with. But the first step is forgiving them, whether verbally, I forgive you, or most important, forgiving them in your heart, because that's where it all takes place. That's where everything takes place, in the heart. And if our heart is full of unforgiveness towards people and ourselves, we can't fully walk in our purpose. So how do we get rid of that? How do we deal with that? The first thing is acknowledging that you have been hurt. Acknowledge that because of that hurt and holding on to that hurt, you have essentially blocked yourself. We're not saying that they didn't hurt you or that what they did wasn't cool, but now you're controlling the gate of your heart by keeping it locked, because I'm hurt. I'm hurting on the inside. So I'm going to keep any and everything good that could be trying to enter. I'm going to block it now. You're blocking it now because you're choosing to hold on to the unforgiveness. Let it go. Open your mouth and forgive them, whether they're alive or dead, whether you are in close proximity to them or not. It's the action. It's the action of speaking that breaks chains. It is the action of speaking out loud that breaks chains. So what I want you to do is I want you to open your mouth and actually say their name, what they did, how it made you feel, and then forgive them. And then once you do that, I want you to forgive yourself. Because the truth of the matter is, all of us have actually contributed to the circumstances in our lives. We've made decisions. We've held on to things. We've done all kinds of things that actually hurt ourselves. So you need to forgive you. And just like you forgave that person or those people, you've got to open your mouth and actually say your name, what you've done in your life that you know have self-sabotaged, harmed you and your purpose, and you need to forgive yourself. And I promise you, when I went through that experience initially, I cannot tell you how much of a weight was lifted off of me. It's like, if you've ever had COVID and you lost your sense of taste and smell and so forth and so on, you don't even know, how sweet something can be until it's taken from you. You don't know how good something can taste until you can't taste it anymore. And then when you're finally able to taste it again, it's like you tasting it for the first time. So that's what forgiving does. It opens our eyes to the freedom, the beauty, the love, the opportunity that's all around us. And when we have clearer vision, we can see the path clearer. The second mistake that could be blocking you from your purpose is lack of mentorship. So essentially, you need someone who's been where you are and made it out. So after this first event that was tragic in my life happened, I met a gentleman who essentially fit that bill. It was, I don't use the term luck and so forth and so on. I do believe it was divinely choreographed that I met this particular gentleman at this time in my life. And the first meeting between he and I, it was evident that this was going to be a lifelong relationship. And we come from two different worlds. We couldn't look any different. There's so many things about us that are almost opposite from the eye, from the human natural eye when you look at us. But so many things about our lives, what we've experienced and so forth and so on, are intertwined. And because he actually walked through a lot of the things that I was walking through then and currently, he was able to show me a path. Now, that doesn't mean that my path is exactly like his, but what his life taught him was the principle of the matter. The principle of the matter, which is here is an open door, Okay. If you start out on this course, you're going to encounter X, Y, Z. And here are some tools that can help you as you traverse your path, not his path, my path. And so when we're looking for mentors, we need to be careful that we're not connecting ourselves with someone who wants to control, right? And you'll know relatively early on in a relationship if somebody is in a mentor type relationship with you because of ego or because they want to control or whatever the case may be. If it's like that and you sense that, then that's not the situation. The mentor for you is not going to control you. The mentor for you will actually support you finding things out on your own in a way. All they're doing is giving you tools that they have amassed along the way that can help you as you go through life and your journey. But as a mentee, your role as a mentee is also vitally important. A lot of us seek wisdom and teachers and so forth and so on. And I'm a teacher. I've taught on various levels since I was 16 years old, so for 30 years. And what I find in students, we'll say, is that there are some who want to learn, but they want to tell you how to teach them. They want to essentially control the dynamic of the relationship. And there's a certain level of humility that one must have when we're searching for a mentor. There's a posture of humility that you have to have when you are going to call yourself a mentee, because it's a privilege, it's an honor to have a mentor save you time, years, effort, energy by giving you the tools that they have had to earn the hard way. So you honor that by having a posture of humility. You honor that by having a posture of transparency. There's no way that you're going to grow at the rate that you could, that you desire, if you're not going to be transparent. The mentor-mentee relationship requires transparency on both fronts, from both angles, but particularly yours. You've got to have a posture of humility and transparency. And you have to have an openness to being mentored. A lot of us have been harmed by leaders in our lives. A lot of us have trust issues when it comes to allowing someone to essentially take the reins of our life and help steer our ship. They will never fully control your life, and you should not allow that. But they're certainly helping you navigate this course. And a lot of us have been hurt in those types of leadership roles where someone who was in a leadership role betrayed us, hurt us, undermined us. And so we go back to the first step, forgiveness. If that's been your experience, then you've got to get to a place of forgiveness so that you can be open to the right mentor coming in your life. So what are you doing to actively seek a mentor? Right? So you can actually prepare yourself for a mentor, right? You can prepare yourself by having the posture. When you're in the room full of great men and women and they're speaking, do more listening than talking. Do more listening than yapping, right? That's that posture of humility. And your teacher, your mentor is out there. But until you walk in forgiveness from the hurt that you've experienced, until you take a posture of humility, transparency, and I'm not suggesting that you, as soon as you meet somebody, that you just, word vomit and just, that could work for you, but only you will know that in the moment, right? So taking a posture of humility, transparency, and openness is what's required of you to present yourself to a mentor. So I would suggest to you that you actively seek out mentorship. And again, the way to do that is by having the posture of a mentee, and make sure that your mentor shares your values and purpose. Their lives don't have to look exactly like yours. They don't necessarily even have to be in your quote unquote industry or whatever place you find yourself in, or whatever jobs and career you have that line up with your purpose. They don't have to be in the same one. They have to have your value system, or they have to have a value system that you aspire towards. The third mistake that could be blocking you from walking in your purpose is having the wrong crew around you. Who you surround yourself with matters. There's the great book that all business entrepreneur thought leaders suggest and have read and so forth and so on, From Good to Great. And one of the things that I remember about that book is that it is so important who you have on the bus with you. It is so important who you have on the bus with you. And so after I walked this road of forgiveness, after I found a mentor, what I acquired next was a group of men that essentially became my brothers for life. And one of the things that you want to look for in your crew is that they are submitted to the same things that you're submitted to. They have the same values, and that they are reaching towards a higher goal for themselves, potentially their family, and everybody that they connect with, right? So again, they have to have your values. A lot of times we hold on to relationships because they make us feel good. They remind us of a past that we may or may not secretly still be connected to. And if you endeavor to walk the path of your purpose, you're going to have to get comfortable with the fact that some people in your life are there for a season only. They're not there. You can't take everybody with you, but you can certainly glean something from people in a particular season. But just because you glean something from them, whether it just be merely companionship or a shared fear, maybe you were a freshman in college and you were afraid and they were afraid and you guys could be afraid together. That helped you in 1999, but it's 2025. Does that relationship still serve you? And are you filling up your life with people that are connected to points in your life that you are unwilling to give up because you're afraid of what the present would look like if you didn't have all of these connections? You might feel alone. You might feel like, well, who do I turn to? There may be a period in your life where you are isolated, but don't despise isolation. Everyone needs isolation for a season to prepare them for what is coming next. So having a great crew around you allows for accountability and camaraderie. What does that mean? That means that if you have people around you, and it could be one person, it doesn't have to be a gang. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whoever is walking that path alongside of you is your crew, right? So having a crew gives you accountability. There have been so many times in my life where previously, when I was not connected to people like that, I could live my life any way I wanted to because I didn't have anybody looking at me side-eye like, is that really what you want to be doing right now? But as soon as God blessed me with a crew, I was convicted in my heart. I couldn't just hang out and eat tacos with these men who I pledged to live a better life with and look them in the eye and not expressing them the reality of my existence. And here's a tip. The people in your crew aren't going to condemn you if and when you make a mistake. So that's a telltale sign of if I'm connected to the right people. When you express to them through accountability that you have fallen, you've made a mistake, they might tell you about what you've done and the consequences and so forth and so on. They may have a reaction, but it's all going to come from a place of love. In other words, we don't like the fact that you're falling backwards. We don't like that you're still thinking like this. And we're going to let you know. They're letting you know because they love you and they want to see the best for you. So rather than condemning you and kicking you while you're down, they're going to lend a hand. And so these relationships go both ways. If you are too prideful that you will not allow someone in close proximity who you claim to trust to speak to you in a way that says, you're better than this, then you're not ready. And that's okay. That's okay. But when you're ready to walk the path of purpose, you need people in your life that you give permission to speak to you in a way that's going to make you uncomfortable. You need to be uncomfortable to make changes. You need to be uncomfortable to make changes in your life. And as I said before, previously when I was isolated, I allowed myself comfort first and foremost, which allowed me to be on an island by myself, living in mediocrity. But as soon as I was connected to men who held me accountable, I could no longer live isolated. And when you fall and you have a crew around you, you've got camaraderie. There's nothing like falling and there's no one around. But I promise you, you can get back up a lot quicker and with more focus, because there's nothing like falling and getting back up. I don't know what the science is. I don't know how to describe it. But once you've fallen and you're able to get back up and go at it again, you have a certain vigor. You have a wind behind you that you didn't have before. And when you have men and women in your life who can help you back up after you've fallen, and it is just, it's like I don't even know. I don't even have an analogy to describe it, but it's the most wonderful thing. And so that's why you need a crew for accountability and camaraderie. So evaluate your circle and then intentionally build relationships with those on a similar journey. Stop hanging on to relationships for warm, cozy feelings. That in and of itself is a form of self-sabotage because you are too afraid to be alone for a season so that you can be open to the right kind of relationships that are lockstep with your purpose. So you've got to do that. You've got to do that. So the fifth mistake that could be preventing you from walking your path of purpose or seeing or knowing your personal path of purpose is not getting back up after you've fallen, just like we mentioned. You are going to fail. You are going to fail more times than you can imagine along this path. I can't tell you how many times I got to a certain level and say, I would never. Yeah, I'm so beyond that, only to find myself back in that scenario again. And most honest people, regardless of what field of endeavor you're in, will tell you, if they're transparent enough, how many times they actually failed and took a step or two backwards on their path towards purpose. And so we've got to normalize the reality that failure is a part of this. And we have to get to a place where we're not afraid to fail, that failure is not a death sentence unless it involves death. But more times than not, failure is not a death sentence. I remember when I was in high school, I was so afraid to make a mistake. I went to a performing arts high school for jazz trumpet, and I was so afraid to make a mistake because I just had this false lie in my head all the time that one mistake means that I will never be a great jazz trumpet player. I'm going to know it. They're going to know it, and it's over. Why am I still here doing this? So I would do everything I could to not expose myself to the possibility of failing. And what did that do? That's the self-sabotage, because the failure shows you that you're on the path. Comfort, you're not going to fall off the couch. You're not going to fall off the couch. The potential to fall is when you start taking steps. But what's on the outside, on the other side of those steps, are purpose. Now you can look back and now you can see the footprints and you can say, wow, I'm on the path. But if you don't see footprints, it's because you're not taking steps. And if you're not taking steps, you will not fail. So we have to normalize failure and be okay with it. So just like we spoke about, well, I didn't give any examples, but we can all think of our heroes and how we've heard their stories. We've heard the story of Michael Jordan getting cut from the JV team. We've heard the stories before, right? So, make a list, whether literally or figuratively, of the people that you admire that have failed and continue to push towards their path of purpose. When babies learn how to walk, I'm not even going to go into that analogy, because we see the picture. We understand that on our path to purpose, we're going to stumble, but it's the getting back up that matters. The Bible says a righteous man falls 7 times, right? So if a righteous man falls 7 times, an unrighteous man theoretically could fall 14 times, right? So the moral is that all of us fall. And I promise you that if you're on a path towards something greater, you will fall more than you can imagine. So prepare for that. I studied jiu-jitsu for a season, and one of the first things that they taught us is how to fall. A physical perspective, we can imagine that falling puts you at a disadvantage temporarily. The technique to falling is important, because when you fall, not if you fall, if you don't have a scheme, mechanism, wherewithal to get back up, then guess what you're going to do? Stay down. And a lot of us have not learned the skill set of falling. So when we fall, we essentially think, again, it's a death sentence. Oh, well, I guess I'm still that person. Oh, well, I guess, I'll never get out of this. That defeatism, that defeated mindset is what we replay over and over in our head to self-sabotage us. Because here's the reality. There is something inside of you that does not believe that you deserve to walk this path of purpose. And so all of these things that we're talking about, all of these 5 mistakes that could be blocking you from your purpose, are designed for one thing and one thing only: to convince you that you don't deserve this life, that you were a mistake, that you've made far too many wrong decisions. You struggle too much in this area. You keep failing in that area. Everything that we're talking about is designed to get you to believe that. So the things that I've just listed to you, these 5 mistakes that could be preventing you from walking your path of purpose, are designed to help combat that false ideology that operates in all of us on every level of every demographic. None of us are immune to it. All of us struggle with imposter syndrome. All of us struggle with insecurities and false beliefs and doubts and so forth and so on. Right? So forgiveness, mentorship, having the right people around you, learning how to fall and getting back up are all keys that could help you find your path to purpose. Here's the thing: the path exists already. So if the path exists, then all it means is that there's something clouding your vision, whether that be physical vision, mental, emotional, physical. Again, something is clouding your vision from what already exists. You don't have to create the path. That's what we need to remember from this, is that we're not creating the path. We're removing anything and everything from our purview that's preventing us from seeing what already exists. And as you clear the eyesight, as you clear your vision, as you wipe the sleep from your eyes, you will be able to see what already exists that you were blind to previously. So I think I'm out of order, but it doesn't matter. Here are 5 things, and here's the last thing. All right. So number 5 mistake that could be preventing you from walking your path to purpose is thinking that your purpose has to look a certain way. So I started this video talking about living most of my life thinking that a certain thing was my purpose. And what I discovered through a series of unfortunate events and walking through all of these steps that I'm talking to you about is that I had a greater purpose. So my purpose is that I'm a teacher. So when I was in college, everybody told me that, oh, you should go to school for education and so forth and so on. I come from a family, my mother's side are all educators. My father's side are musicians. So I have musicians and educators. And there was something inside of me that did not want to submit to the idea of me being a teacher first and foremost, because the truth of the matter is I didn't want to be stuck in classrooms teaching 6th graders how to play the trumpet and march in a parade. That I didn't feel like that was my calling. I still don't feel like that was my calling, but I resisted the notion that I was a teacher for most of my life. And I put all of my eggs in one basket and said, I'm a performer. And so for the majority of my life, that's who I was. My identity and my purpose was I'm a performer. And I did so much of that. And again, it wasn't until a series of unfortunate events that put me in a position to be able to see and hear. I didn't see it. It was told to me. And when it was told to me, my spirit leapt inside of my body because I finally knew and understood my purpose, that I am a teacher. So what does that look like? What that means is that everywhere I go, whatever I'm doing, whatever scenario I'm involved, I'm a teacher. But great teachers are great students. So it's not like I go around and I give unsolicited advice all the time just because I'm a teacher and I know and I've been through things. And I'm not suggesting that I've never been like that, because anytime you're given something new, some new gift that is revealed to you, you don't necessarily know how to use it properly. And again, we've talked about this in another video, but when the ego gets involved, then we pervert our gifts. We pervert our purpose. So I had to learn that just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean I have to yip yap and give unsolicited advice all the time. There's a time and a place. Jesus, the great teacher, didn't yip yap and give unsolicited advice all the time. Didn't tell people how to do. Sometimes being a great teacher just means loving somebody so that you can prepare them to hear what they need to hear to change their lives. And we skip over that part. We want to jump straight to the lesson. I'm on a tangent about teachers right now. But the point of the matter is that as a teacher, my purpose being a teacher, I have learned instinctively, I have learned how to operate in my purpose, no matter where I am, what I'm doing, what kind of job I have, what my career looks like. It doesn't matter. And most of us get caught up because we are mistaking our job, our career, what we have, where we live, none of that actually really matters in the grand scheme of things. I'll say that again. Your job, your career, where you live, it matters, but it does not matter nearly as much as we like to give it credit for. What am I saying? I'm saying that if you are an encourager, but right now you find yourself working a job that you don't necessarily, it doesn't make you leap for joy every day when you think about doing this particular job. If you're an encourager and that's your heart and God created you to be an encourager of people, then you've got to find ways. You will find ways. You don't have to force, right? Because if you're going through all of these steps that we've talked about in this video, then your eyes, your ears, your senses, everything about you will be open to the reality that there you could serve a need, you can fill a void regardless of where you are, regardless of what title you have, regardless of what documentation you have. Your purpose can be used in every endeavor. And that's the beautiful thing. You're still here because God has a purpose for you. And you're striving and pining after some platform and stage when you could actually be, you are planted in a place to serve your purpose in a way that may not be showy, may not be grandeur. So we've got to do away with thinking that our purpose automatically means that we're going to do big things. You've got to be comfortable. You've got to be comfortable knowing that wherever you are, there is your purpose as well. So I have 2 children. And sure, we understand that parents are teachers, but I take it very serious. I take it very serious. And my children are essentially my litmus test for me in knowing if I'm allowing my ego to drive me in my purpose, or if I'm allowing God to drive me in my purpose. What do I mean by that? That means that as a father, a natural biological father, I want to say, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, right? And there are many times where that is the case. But as my children grow, I'm growing as well. And I get to see how teaching them doesn't always look like they showed me on Thursday evening in the 90s. It doesn't always look like how my parents taught me. And it certainly doesn't look like how I feel in a given moment all the time. So again, your wherever you are, there is your purpose as well. And if you're free from walking in unforgiveness, if you have a great mentor in your life that you are humble and submitted to and transparent with, if you have a great group of people around you, or a person or people that are walking the path with you in accountability and fellowship and camaraderie, if you understand how to get back up when you fall, then I promise you, your purpose will be revealed to you. And stop despising the day of small beginnings. Stop thinking that just because the spotlight isn't on you, that you're not walking in your purpose. Stop thinking just because you're not on the biggest stage that you're not walking in your purpose. Stop thinking that just because you don't have the things in your life that you thought you were supposed to have, that you're not walking in your purpose. So I just want to recap the 5 mistakes that could be blocking you from your purpose as I close this video. Unforgiveness. We've got to learn to forgive others and forgive ourselves. Lack of mentorship. You can't walk this thing alone. You need somebody who's been where you've been and who got out and can teach you how not to make the same mistakes they did. You cannot isolate yourself. You've got to have a crew of people around you that can hold you accountable and provide camaraderie and comfort when you fall. You've got to learn how to fall and get back up. You've got to normalize making mistakes on this path to purpose. And finally, you've got to stop thinking that your purpose has to look a certain way. Your purpose isn't something you find, it's something you live. And every decision you make brings you closer or further from it. So you get to decide. You get to decide. And I'm confident and I believe wholeheartedly that all of us were created with a purpose, on purpose. In this world, your life, this entire world would be a much better place if we were all walking in purpose and our truest identity. So much of the angst and depression and anxiety and anger come from us not living and walking in our truest identity and true purpose. So if you endeavor to change the world, start with you. Start by having an honest conversation with yourself about these things we discussed today. Take control over your life. It doesn't matter who's in office. You get to decide for you. And I promise you, if you're living and walking in your purpose, your world, this world will be a much better place. If this podcast has helped you in any way, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your experiences in walking and finding your path to purpose. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out to me directly in the comments or the DMs. If this helped you, please share it with someone else that you believe it can help. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, do all the things. It helps us out. And we can continue bringing to you this type of content. Until the next video, peace.